we just prepping and shooting shit, or what are we?
Well, we are recording now. Right as you said shit, we're recording.
Oh,
we can cut that. Shit.
Okay, first swear word on record. Dan
gets point. I would love a point box in the corner for every curse word. That would be great.
My mom would be so proud of that point box. She'd be like, "My son better not be on there."
Hey Dan, I want to buy that shirt.
You know what? My girlfriend got me that for Christmas. It's an artist named Basquiat.
That's epic. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, huh?
Yep. So, all right, we can. Shana, you want to kick us off and go to the introductions?
Yes, absolutely. So today we have a pretty rowdy bunch of people here that I happen to adore. So I wanted us to get together, kind of shoot the shit. Let's put me down for a mark. Shoot the shit.
Right.
And just let people know we're still here. And so Clark, why don't you kind of introduce yourself and give us a little bit of what you've been doing lately?
Hola, ¿cómo está? Oh, I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Clark with the Alliance of Independent Restorers, Restoration Advisors. I've got like 14 jobs. So just today, though, I'm going to stick to the Alliance of Independent Restorers because I really feel like we need to bring back alliance to our industry, to our country, to our world. So I'm going to go with that. And shit, I need a point. Okay, go ahead.
There we go. We're almost all equal. John, it's up to you.
John, and then we'll be even.
You're hopefully not going to get one out of me.
Okay.
I'll go next. I'm John Grubb. I'm the founder and president of United Restorers and work with Clark in the Alliance of Independent Restorers. And I guess I'm kind of approaching this from an air perspective as well, even though we're going to talk some marketing and advertising and what we observed in 2020 in the marketing world. What about you, Dan?
Good times.
Who are you?
Who am I? Dan York, founder of Stellar E-Marketing and the Water Damage Marketing Program. Also a proud supporter and sponsor of AIR.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. I'm Shana. I handle the sales in the restoration division at Stellar, and I am good about cutting people off. So what were you going to say, Clark?
I just wanted everybody to say where you're at. So, Shana, you're in Florida currently, aren't you?
Currently, yeah.
Am I not supposed to say that?
Oh, no, it's fine.
All the stalkers in the world need to know where she is. She's in Florida.
I know. I travel a bit, but yeah, I'm currently in Florida. But I live in Kansas City, and I was born and raised in Texas, but my heart kind of is in Nashville. Don't tell Dan, though.
Okay.
I knew that the whole time. It was not a big secret to me.
Nashville's a pretty cool town. That's where you live, Dan, right?
Nashville? Yep, that's where I'm at right now. I've been here about 10 years.
Mm.
Yep. That's where we met 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And John, where do you call home, John? Where's that slice of heaven you're at?
I am in Idaho.
Awesome. Right next door to Nashville.
It's great. Yeah, just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah. And what about you, Clark? Virginia?
Virginia. I live north of Richmond, Virginia, originally, like Shana, although we didn't know each other. I'm from Texas as well. You can see from the that is Texas, by the way. And my mask that I don't have to wear. I was representing, if I'm going to make it wear a mask, it's going to be Texas flag.
Oh my God.
But yeah, originally from Texas, grew up there, and life has relocated us out to Richmond, and it's a good place. It's a decent place.
Yeah.
Don't want to hurt any feelings for anybody that lives here, but it's decent. It's okay.
Understood. Well, this brings me to a question. I know you have been out in Texas a lot. There's been some unprecedented, like crazy weather going on. I've been checking in. Well, I did. It's past now, but I was checking in with my friends and family and seeing everybody's going. And a lot of them didn't have power or water. They were drinking, water from their gutters from their house, putting them into bottles, like some crazy stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about how did that go down there with you?
Went good. Yeah, it was. When we talk about it like that, I've been telling everyone it's a very deceptive storm. It wasn't like a hurricane. It wasn't a tornado. It was deep freeze, which were 80% of the country says, we get that all the time. Why is such an issue? We're just talking about building construction types and the temperature, the depth that it went for the period of time it went. And then you add to it power grids going down, which would allow them not to have internal heating to keep the residents warmer. So lines that wouldn't have frozen at 6 degrees did. But just the pure scale of it is really what is, I mean, we're hearing figures, give it what is, either through the internet or through some credible source, that this could end up being the largest, financially, the largest claim event in the history of America from one.
Beating out Katrina and all that, huh?
Beating out Katrina. I
Wow,
actually
that's incredible.
I heard a new story on the plane flying, or read a new story on the plane flying here, that there are some reports based on numbers that the claims in Texas for the month of February and a little even rolled into now March and probably on, have surpassed in some ways the nationwide number of events, because it's 1 in 5 structures. 1 out of 5 structures had some level degree of impact from water. So but you don't know it from driving down the road. Everything's open. It's now 75 degrees there, getting close to 80. It's Texas in the spring. It's no big deal, but it was for a week, and it is from the surge and the concentration of how many people needed to be there for the responses, and the big issue now they're having is where to put all these people that have to, because these were all flooded homes. Like, floors have to come out, contents have to come out. These people are going to need to go live somewhere else unless they have a 2-story that wasn't affected. Right. And there's a shortage of temporary housing. So now they're just like, where do we put people? There's actually mitigation not occurring because of a stagnation of temporary housing. So it's just these logistical challenges that keep piling on top of each other.
Wow.
We have a term here in Idaho for what happened in Texas. We call it April. But I get with the changes in construction. When we first moved here from California, I couldn't believe that sprinkler lines were buried, 2 to 4 feet deep, coming from California, where they're 6 inches if you're lucky. The North builds a little bit differently than the South does. But you're right. I had clients from all over the country respond to Texas. There's a few that are still there that maybe shouldn't be, but it was an amazing storm event, and short, didn't last very long.
Yeah, for sure.
It didn't. And the challenge, and I'll turn this back over to you, Shana, is the challenge is water exists for a short period of time before it comes mold or microbial impact. And we don't want to get too deep into it, but Texas is a regulated state with mold remediation, and that brings challenges of who can actually do the work that's needed once it turns into mold. And then the other side of that is insurance companies that don't cover mold. You start getting into that battle of it's only moldy because we couldn't get someone out here to mitigate properly. So the challenges will become bigger soon and last a long period of time. And I'm just hoping that we have professionals out there that know how to navigate through that, or they're going to lose their shirts.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that kind of was bringing me into, like, when I was talking to you earlier about the original idea of having this chat, because, you hear a lot, and sometimes it is a little cheesy. Like, I learned so much from this pandemic, and I made so many changes, and there's so much, like, what are some of the biggest lessons, like, in 2020 that you guys have learned, and as a result of dealing with this, global pandemic? I don't want to give it too much attention. Jesus Christ, it's been all over the news every single day, all day long. But I think there's a lesson to be learned here from what we all experienced as companies, and how we dealt with it, and how we got through it, and how we helped others and are helping others to kind of, regroup and get back on track. So I thought that might be something you guys could expand upon and see, what happened with your 2020.
Dan or John, go ahead.
And there's a lot. I mean, that was a loaded question.
I figured it'd give us like 2 hours worth of conversation.
I mean, I probably have 4 or 5 points, and I'm sure we all do. I mean, but these years are not normal years. And yeah, you could say you learn something every year, but this year, I think the closest years that we've all experienced relatively recently anyway was probably 2008, 2009, and the after years of that. And then after September 11th, I was pretty young around then, but still doing business. But what didn't affect me as much as this last year or 2008 and 9. You know, I would have to say probably the main thing is coming down to, you know, like your team. You know, you got to have a tight core team. You got to have any weak links in years like this, any holes in your company, you know, any crutches that you have, they get explored and probed, and situations like that will just expose any weakness you have. And that doesn't just go for the people in your company, that goes for yourself. So if you have any holes of knowledge in your business or any gaps that you should have been paying attention to in your business, they all get exposed in situations like this. It puts all this pressure down, and it's like a balloon with a hole in it. You put the pressure down on it, the leak is going to spring, you know? So you just really have to, you know, it just makes you get tighter and tighter. And I feel like things get more and more simple, to be honest. I feel like I get pushed into more and more simplicity instead of complexity. That's probably the top of my pyramid of knowledge that I got from last year. How about you guys?
That makes sense. Jonathan,
I'll talk about the industry first, what I noticed. So, you know, the restoration, it's the chaos business, right? But there are trends to chaos. You can look at historical data and go, okay, well, usually between July and the first 2 weeks of August, those are our slow production weeks out of the year. January, on the flip side, is usually very, very productive. When 2020 started, I think most companies were banking on having a great winter, and we didn't. We had a terribly warm winter all across the country. Yeah. So then you hit the end of March, beginning of April, when the country starts locking down, and the cash reserves that most companies expected to have from January and February, it wasn't there. And unfortunately, you scramble, you try to figure out where am I bleeding money, and then you go kill that thing. And oftentimes that is advertising and marketing efforts. You know, you don't go sell the nice truck you drive around. You cut off any chance of getting work in the future, because it's expensive to advertise and market, right? So that's what I saw. So many companies don't have any cash in reserves, and so when something like this happens, they're kind of screwed. They've got to figure out real quick, how do we survive this?
Those are two good points, actually, because, you know, nobody really thinks about things like that, even on a personal level, with just people or with companies, on how little reserves everybody's actually holding, you know, until these scenarios come up and they're like, oh my God. But John, that happened also in 2008. What was that, November or October, when that whole stock market, or the whole the mortgage-backed security housing thing happened? I think it was November of 2008. But that same exact thing happened back then, where you know, your knee-jerk move is to pull back any of your marketing efforts, you know, and just pull it all back. I mean, even me on a personal level, I think I wore sweatpants and sweatsuits and tracksuits for like 9 months in a row. I'm definitely not marketing myself.
I'm not wearing pants quite yet. I feel like we're still in the pandemic. And not wearing
baby steps.
It was like day pajamas into night pajamas. Like, that's what.
Yeah.
You know, I want to come off of a point you just said, Dan, and I have my own thing, but I want to just say for the record, John doesn't have a point yet. So, you know, Dan, you're talking about the 08. That's kind of the last time we had something that was economically as impactful as what we just incurred. And just like you and Shana and John, we talked to a multitude of different companies of different sizes and demographics around the country almost every day. And I found last year, those that did the best were the older generations of restorers that did go through that before. They know what that felt like. They prepared for it the next year. It's the entrepreneur, the new generation of these, some of the newer franchise chains did not do well because it was the first thing. you know, we lived through a really prolific couple of years where I wouldn't say everybody was doing well, but, you know, there's a lot of events, a lot of, a lot of work was coming through. It wasn't always profitable work. And I think that you're talking about the reserves that people don't have, because they always think that tomorrow is going to deliver a new garden. And
yeah,
then they've got just the wake up call was it's not that real. So I saw a lot of people last year, like you all, unprepared. But for the positive, I think they learned from that, and they're now thinking differently about how they spend, what they spend. How will I be ready for that happening again? And the truth is, they have to know it will happen again, and it may not look like that. It may be something else. I think we're up for a huge disruption, even more so in the future with insurance and blockchain and things like that than we have right now. But
that's interesting. So you think it's based on like an age gap? Because I'll tell you what, in 2008 and 2009, one of the things that happened was the restoration space, you know, everything's collapsing, but I got to tell you guys, restoration was doing pretty well. I mean, there was a lot of money being made. We were working with these guys. They were making a lot of money with us. And then it seemed like everybody who was doing construction, basement waterproofing, all these guys were like, shit, we're not making any money. Excuse me, there's two for me. Yeah. They were like, we're not making any money. So then they were all moving into restoration because, like, well, they're all making money and it's construction based. And so it would be those guys would be about, 10 years old now and not having experienced really that, this massive shift like that. So it's interesting you say that, Clark.
Yeah, but people that tell me, some people told me I had, even a colleague or a neighbor of John's said, we literally had the best year ever last year. Revenue and profit, as well as growth and customer experience and whatnot. But this is a company that has been in business 15 plus years, make smart decisions, have good culture, have good structure, where you have 3-4-year-old companies who jumped on some Facebook group and saw there was some people making some money doing this, or worked for someone else and said, I just need a truck and a couple of fans and dehumidifier and I can make a living. But they found out that they weren't quite prepared. And, I know some people didn't make it. I mean, I think you all probably know some people.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah. We just didn't make it. And that's the natural attrition of business. And
no, it just goes to show you there's no such thing as easy money.
No.
I don't ever want to hear anybody say our industry is recession proof again. I want to.
Yeah.
I was just reading an article on that and how that used to be, I forgot who it was, but they were saying it's definitely not. There's been a lot of guys who have suffered, but I think what we're all talking about is just that preparedness, making sure you have multiple forms of marketing and you're doing multiple things to keep steady. I think that's where it really can become recession proof to some degree,
Well, the businesses trim, situations like this trim the fat off of an economy. I think a country like ours, as much as I love it, has gotten pretty fat. You know what I mean? Like, we're paying attention to things that we shouldn't really be paying attention to because we have it so good here. You know what I mean? So, and that includes businesses, frankly. I mean, it's the best country in the world to start a business. And
sure.
I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's easier than anywhere else in the world to start a business, right? So
your only limitation in this country is usually you.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you want to know how to if you want a zebra farm in the middle of Kansas, you can probably do it and find.
You probably could, yeah. The zebra farm.
That's weird, but yeah, you could do it.
Listen, weird sells. It just really does. So I think that's proliferation of the expanse of social media reaching. And but I would tell you, I want to go back to my point of what I see. 2020, and of course we're going to be talking about this for a long time. This is whether or not how we get over it. Is I think it's caused a big shift. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way we were. I think the virtuality of things, the Zoom, the things, businesses that cropped up with new, energetic and smart ways to work around and more, honestly more profitable. Not being in person. I just think that there's going to be a digitalization of our market that's far different than the way people couldn't go market to agents in person, got really good at digitally reaching out, via, whether email or whether Zoom or whatever that was. And I just think that shifted a lot of companies on how they market. They kind of might say, I like this. It's actually less expensive. It's more, I get more done with this. And people that didn't use SEO before or didn't use social media, or they kind of figured out last year, besides us telling them for a long time,
right,
get on social media. Now they were forced to, and they saw what we were talking about. So I think that will shift some of that in-person with, agents and plumbers and things like that. There's different ways to reach people now through different channels.
Yeah. Well, it's two decisions basically. I mean, you hit a scenario like last year, and you got one decision, which is to pull back, which is, the fear reaction is to pull back and cut this and hold on to whatever you got and just hope everything goes well. I think we all saw some of those companies disappear last year. And then there's the more the survival mentality. It's kind of like everybody flees the burning building, and some of us go into the building and look for the survivors in there. You know what I mean? While everybody else is running out. In 2008, 2009, a lot of those types of businesses, not only, they're sitting there doubling up on marketing and getting more and more market share while a lot of guys are running out of that burning building. And then, 2014, 2015 rolls around when things are starting to settle out. Those guys emerge as the market leaders. Same thing is going to happen after this. There's going to be certain people who emerge out of this as a market leader while other ones are hobbling through it if they even made it to begin with. So it's simple choices that have major ramifications about your future.
Yeah, no shit. Hey, John, what did you see from your side?
In April, I think it was April, maybe as late as May, but I started seeing companies fire their salespeople in the restoration space, and I couldn't process why on earth you would do that. And they were, in some cases laying off, and you'll probably be able to come back in a couple of weeks, and this was, as we hit our 1-year anniversary of 15 days to flatten the curve. Which I'm not bitter about at all.
He gets a point for that. He gets a point. Come on.
Thanks.
I've put on like 20 or 25 pounds since then. Does that have anything to do with this?
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah.
Similar. Okay.
Yeah. But I couldn't process the what leads an owner or a management team to go, yes, this makes sense. We should fire the people who potentially bring us income. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, interestingly, you were talking about doubling down. That's what we chose to do as a company. We spent a ton of money last year. We had our website rebuilt with trying to attract a different type of client. We added a service for the first time ever that cost money to implement. And part of the reason that we chose to do that was because I had been preaching it through April and May of, hey, you got to double down and attack this thing, not lay off people or fire people. But I saw companies that were taking a more aggressive, kind of like the back is to the wall and they're ready to fight it to the death. Those are the companies that now report, in early 2021, oh yeah, best year ever. I have heard that more times than I've heard of companies closing their doors. I'm over and over again, best year ever, 2020, best year ever. And it's only the companies that decided we're gonna fight this thing out. So it really comes down to attitude. You've got to be ready to not just survive.
I'll share a little of a stellar story. Dan had a meeting with everyone, and we had what we call a come to Jesus moment. And we just got together and we literally said, okay, what are we going to do about this, guys? We're not going to succumb. We're just going to buckle down. And we just started
we got real specific too, because the whole world is talking about laying people off, and all these restaurants everywhere are closing, and whatever it was, 10 million people out of work in no time. And I think it was more like 45 by this time now, but at that time it was millions out of work. And I said, listen, nobody's getting let go. Nobody's getting docked pay. Anything is changing. We're just coming together, and we're just going to have to pull through this. And we we like to consider ourselves a pretty good survivor bunch, but we took a pretty good hit, just like everybody else did. Within, I don't know, it was 4 to 6 weeks. It was just like getting socked in the stomach, and we were just like, all right, well, let's just come through it.
Bloodbath, but then we came together and we started to get things off the ground again. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to bring that up. So we're all of us on the call are in a service industry, not directly. We aren't restoration contractors. So right. I don't know about you, and you just kind of alluded to that. It was a devastating year for me, restoration advisors. And I don't, and to your point, Dan, I don't have a team. I was, it was me, it was survival. And I think, to be fair, what John just said, we heard this was short term. We were being fed the word that this was not a bigger deal until it was. But almost immediately, the word essential got thrown around, which I thought it was the dumbest word. We're always essential. We're all essential. But people put themselves in the category of essential and not. So my services for coaching and business consulting became a non-essential part of an essential industry. And it was easy to say yes. And to John's point, many people said I struggled during that time on making good decisions because I did not have a good coach, an accountability partner to bounce things off of. And some of them came back. But there was a big reactionary for me, and it calls me. You're talking about pivoting, you're talking about adjusting. I looked at 2021 and I said, I will rebuild, but maybe my business needs to look a little different, where I'm a little more insulated for this kind of a tragic, huge thing. So I'm digiting to some online courses that I've already started that have been wildly successful. People are now wanting to consume things online at their own pace. It's not my favorite thing to do, but you meet customers where they are, right? And you build some passion for it so that you can do it well. But last year was close. I mean, my wife and I had a real conversation. Does this thing have a lifeline? Is there a reason to hang on to it? And I said, I believe in it. I believe in what we all do, and I'm not ready to give up. And I'm glad I didn't. But I think a lot of restorers had those conversations last year.
Pivot. That was a word thrown around a lot last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, pivot. So, and I know Shana and I were talking a little bit about this, and I think this might lead into one of our other pre-potted topics. Shana, was we saw an absorbent amount of restoration remediation specialists overnight or over a course of weeks become disinfection or sanitization.
Oh yeah.
And go all in. And early on,
that was their pivot. That was their pivot.
And early on, there was just real hesitation because there was a lot of liability questions getting thrown around. I myself was part of a panel. I was a host of a panel with the RIA talking about, if you're going to do this kind of work, these are the things you need to know. This is where your exposures are. This is, don't go out and think it's just a home run. It's a much lower square foot price and things like that. But I think throughout the months following, it became so commonplace, everyone else just got FOMO and just started doing that themselves. And then they took their marketing off of their core business, whether it be water, fire, mold, contents, or whatever. And then they became synonymous in their market as a disinfection company. And I think some of them are going to have a hard time turning that train back and getting it back going again, getting that steam back up. Did you guys find that from a marketing standpoint?
Jonathan, you should start that one, because I'm just going to say, I mean, there's a ton of pivoting, but Jonathan, what did you say?
Yeah, everybody asked. And Google immediately classified terms like disinfection, COVID-19, et cetera. They labeled it a sensitive event. So I couldn't write ads that I couldn't bid on the keyword disinfection, disinfecting, certainly not coronavirus or COVID-19. So we were totally banned from advertising for it. But I got asked repeatedly, and most of those conversations would turn into, do you have any idea what you're doing?
Right.
And have you talked to an attorney about this? Because we saw companies, I mean, it wasn't just here. I'm sure you all saw it too. Basically like spraying poo be gone, thinking, hey, we're gonna rid these buildings of the COVID.
Flatten the curve ourselves, one droplet at a time. We're going to flatten the curve.
Right.
I like how Jonathan
Be
puts in a
gone.
free plug for Pooh Be Gone.
Yeah. Well, I bought a lot of stock several years
Yeah.
back. So I'm trying
Oh,
to get it.
Well, it's going to go through the
Sure.
roof. It's going through the
It
roof
is.
now.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Jonathan,
a
on
lot
that
of people
legal
ask.
point, we had to do the same thing because we were, we do all SEO on restoration. So we had all of our customers, not all of them, but a lot of the guys wanted to capitalize on that, were calling us, and we weren't prohibited for doing that by Google because we build out website pages and we can do things like that, right? But like you, all I could think was the legal ramifications because I'm like, we're associated with all these guys. So I called my attorney and I had him draw up a brand new contract to prevent us from any liability in this. And then anybody that we were selling into this, we said, listen, this is all you. We're not getting into any of the liabilities of this. You're a customer. We can sell this, but here's the legal documentation on your contract that states we're not liable if, you didn't know what you were doing and somebody got hurt, So it was, we really struggled with that right at the beginning because it was a big onslaught of like, hey, we want to do COVID-19 marketing. We're like, boy, we better figure that one out.
And that's, a year ago, almost to the day, Clark and I were in Charleston doing the annual AIR Summit. And, day one of the AIR Summit, going into it, we didn't know if we were going to be let into the conventions.
Right. I remember that.
The state ended up closing, I think, the day after we left or the day we left Charleston. But obviously, our entire summit was, well, how do we do this, and what are the legal ramifications, and what do we need to focus on, and things like that. And you could definitely sense out, Clark, I don't know if you got this, but you could hear the dollar signs going off above people's heads. Some people, not ever, some people were, I think, terrified of getting close to it, but there was definitely a rush to let's monetize it. And I think with many of those companies, they then took the necessary steps to make sure, okay, is this a sound business decision and wise and everything else? But our industry tends to do that when things like this happen.
Yeah, that bell curve is coming down though. I mean, we're seeing more, we get canceled programs. Well, a majority of those canceled programs are COVID-19 marketing programs because they just, for a lot of the guys, it just didn't pan out how they wanted to. And now, we're going to see it decrease and decrease over time until hopefully it's a thing of the past. But, I don't think the ass end ramifications of this whole thing are over with. From a financial perspective, maybe it is from, marketing for COVID-19 or delivering for COVID-19. I think they'll try to milk this for as long as they can. But, I hope people are really looking financially a little more closely at how to prepare for and weather these situations. Like, not only having a reserves account, but, and me and several of my business friends, we're sitting there talking about like, it's not enough to have just a reserves account. Now you have to sit there and go like, how much did it cost to get through there? Everybody was doing all these EIDL loans and the, what was the other one? The
PPP.
Yeah, the PPP loans. Everybody's doing all these loans. And I was just like, okay, well, it's not only enough to have reserves accounts. Like, even if you look at the value of a dollar, I think the value of the dollar dropped like 14 or 15% last year due to all the money that was being printed. So a dollar is worth like 85 cents or something like that, right? So your reserves, if you had 100,000 in reserves, is now worth $85,000 in buying power. Things like this should really start to become more on people's mind. And I know people that are starting to put their reserves money in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, where they're like, oh, my reserves went up because I put 25% of it in Bitcoin. And I'm like, not totally a stupid move. Dollar goes down 15%, Bitcoin went up quite a bit. So just interesting pressures to think.
I do hope, Dan and everyone, I hope that this has the right people. I hope they've gotten wiser from this. I hope that if you're going to take something from anything, use this as this could really happen. We're not immune to that. It's much like our clients in restoration. No one ever thinks they're going to have a flood or a fire until they do. And I think we all got that. We all got that delivered home. By the way, poopyjohn.com is available, John.
Oh no. Please search that.
I can't believe that that's available. It seems like somebody should have bought that like in 2001.
Exactly.
Cool.
Well, so that kind of brought me into just like what I wanted to kind of bring up next. And I think we already kind of talked about it to some extent, but like the things that, you know, from our hat, I guess, as it were, on what we should be advising these guys to really to do, like in 2021 and beyond. So, you know, they learned, whatever, hopefully they learned, they're still in business. Like what do they need to do to thrive and survive? I know that's kind of a big question, but let's say like the number one thing, you know, it is a big question, but like if you had to boil it down to the most essential, what, Dan, what would you say would be like the number one thing for these guys?
Number one thing, huh? I mean, it's probably there's three things that I'm thinking of. Okay, Shana, there's three things, and I'll make them quick. One is what I always say is you got to be persistent and consistent. That's one thing. You know, the jumping around from one thing to the next is a recipe for disaster in any economy. And there's nobody that's really, really super successful by spreading themselves too thin and being a jack of all trades, master of none. That would be the first thing. You just got to pick your core competency and really kill at it. Like be the best you can at it. Really dominate that marketplace for your locations, et cetera. I mean, I've said that forever. I would say a contrarian mindset would be probably my second thing. So, you know, where the herd is doing this, you might want to take a step back for a second and be like, why is the herd doing that? And what's the long-term game here? Yeah. You know, is that what I want to do? Is that where I see my future going? I find the people who take a contrarian viewpoint tend to win a lot more than the herd mentality people. Case in point, in the beginning of COVID, all the markets crashed completely, right? But I'm going to tell you, if you watched a lot of the money that was coming in while everybody was going out, you had a majority of the people going out trying to save their asses on their nest eggs in the stock market. Well, there's people going in buying Netflix. Why? Because we all knew that streaming was going to go through the roof, right? Anything that had to do with touchless automation, like Amazon and all these other delivery services, there was a lot of money going into the stock market, and those just killed. You know, same with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I think, went down to $3,800 or something like that back in, I think it was March or February, and now it's up to $59,000. I mean, there was money moving in from this contrarian mindset type of people, and I think that all their companies should be run the same way. When everybody's moving out, you should be moving in. When right now real estate is red hot, everybody's moving into real estate, and there's 3 and 4 offers on any place that's going on. Everybody's getting fat. All the real estate agents are like, I'm living large. And all the mortgage brokers are like, I'm living large. So much so that customer service is going out the window a little bit, I've noticed, where it's just like, oh, well, I can throw people away. And I'm like, let's remember that 3 years from now when that bubble bursts and you're calling on everybody going like, please give me some sort of property. Anyway, that's my second one, the contrarian thing. The third one is really probably a whole subject in and of itself, which is just digital marketing. Digital marketing, we all have seen just come in and dominate the marketplace for, you know, a good 15 years now. But this was an exponential leap. I mean, within months, crazy. So, you know, I think that's going to go into way more interesting spots than we've all even anticipated. You know, the digital marketing is touchless. So now we have people that are trained to be germaphobes and trained to be hypochondriacs. They're all freaking out. I mean, I was in a parking lot the other day. I was out going for lunch in Florida, which is pretty loose on this stuff, guys. Nobody's wearing masks at this restaurant. There's hundreds of people there. It's on the beach in Clearwater Beach. And there's a girl freaking out in her car. I mean, full blown freaking out, like tears, yelling at her boyfriend, like, I can't go in there. There's too many people. And, you know, I'm just like, wow. So I don't care what anybody thinks about any of this, whether they agree with it or not. Things have changed. And that whole touchless thing, there's a sector of the market, whether any of us agree with it or not, that it will always want touchless stuff. And I think that the restoration space, with everything from contracts to what happens when a guy shows up on site, is going to get more and more distant and touch free. It's going to be really interesting.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Dan, I don't know if any of you follow, there's a company called Matterport, Matterport. It's 3D imagery, 3 cameras for
Mm.
real estate. You mentioned real estate has been using it for years, but it's made a big emergence in the last 2 to 3 years in restoration. They just had an acquisition buyout, an open checkbook, when their valuation was $2.3 billion, because
Crazy.
they see something with the use of that in the future that we don't even see yet. And those are the kinds of people that those visionary type things, like, let's stop thinking about today. We have to think about today, but we have to think about tomorrow. And I agree with your points, Dan. Most all of them would probably wouldn't been what I said. But I always tell people, think on the macro and not the micro. Don't look at your business unless you know you're selling in 2 years. Look at a 10-year span, because you look at successful companies, that long-term, long play, smart, consistent, but entrepreneurs don't want to go, they don't like the marathon. They like the sprint. They're watching the Grant Cardone, the Elon Musk, and Elon's doing 4 or 5 different things. He's killing him, but he's been broke several times too. And that's just not what, I just wish people would turn off Instagram and focus on what they do and their core competency. I hear people all the time telling me what someone else is doing that has no relevance to what they do or even in their market. Like, what does that have to do with you or what you're doing? So,
yeah.
Johnny,
what about you, John? What you got? You got how many? You got 4? No, I'm just kidding.
I think from a practical standpoint, first, a lot of restores came through January, February, now into March, and they may have cash again. I know our inbound calls have increased. It really started in November, and it's carried through. And now, as payments are coming in, I know from an advertiser's perspective, and you all can probably vouch for this as marketers, that it's going to be a good year because people have money and they're trying to get back into the swing of things. As far as, a 2021 game plan, it's the same thing that I think we've all been saying for a number of years now. And on the digital side, it's, I say do all things and do them consistently. And so I agree with be persistent and be consistent. You've got to do that. If there was any question on how people find help prior to 2020, I think the answer now is pretty clear, that they pull out their phone and they search for help. And so service companies, they have to be found. And I usually go a step further and say, I think you almost have a moral obligation. If you are a service provider and you believe that you are the best in your market, then you have a moral obligation to be found by people within your community. Otherwise, they're going to find the crook down the street that you don't like, right? So it's all those things. It's stop paying your nephew to build your crappy website for you and go spend money on a real website that's actually
funny,
make
Jonathan. Yeah, Jonathan. On that point, I know a guy. I won't say who it is, but he built 48 shyster websites. I don't know what else to call them, man. 48 different websites. He called us. He wanted us to do optimization on all these, and we looked at it. We're like, no way. We ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole, right? But his whole mode of operation was to build as many websites as he can for all these locations. All of them filter back to him, and they're all fake websites. And then what happens is, if a website gets banned by Google, he just replaces it with a new one. So he has this whole kind of website cycling thing. Okay, so anybody that thinks like that, how do you think they're running their business?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know guys, being from Chicago, that I grew up with in the sewer business, which is how I got into this, is, you guys know, in the sewer business, where they would it was kind of like a burn and churn operation. They'd go in, sell a bunch, screw a bunch of people, bankrupt the corporation, and open up a new corporation under a new name, fresh, clean slate, right? I do think that markets like this can tend to squeeze those guys, because, you only make it through something like that with a stable foundation. So I do think that, like what Clark was saying earlier, is correct. The older, wiser, more stable guys. They've built a better foundation. They're not doing like Jonathan's saying and, firing their sales guys at the first sign of trouble, right? They're like, oh, wow, I need that guy to bring in income, So,
Dan, and that brings up a point, because when we talk about things like more experience, more time and tenure and scar, I call it scar tissue.
You call it scar tissue?
Yeah, just having scars, just like I'm not afraid of being cut because I now know what it feels like. And I lived through it once. It's going to hurt, but I will survive. And I just consider it like that. This, I want to prop up air for a minute here. So people ask, if I don't have that experience, and I did live through 2008, how do I know that? Surround your damn self with people who have, and get part of something, be a part of. And if it's not air, get part of something where you have a tribe of others that you can listen. The belief system is, well, why would they give me information? The right people that are involved in a community like air are happy to give away nuggets of information because they went through it, and they don't want to see people who are trying to do good work. That reciprocity comes in and says, I'm going to give you something so that you help my industry, because I'm going to get selfish. When my industry does better, my tides rise, and so does my ship. So I just wish people, I was on a webinar this week. Somebody said, what's the biggest thing in business you think people could do? Collaboration and relationships. You're talking about, don't be transactional, be relational. They're not transactions, they're relationships that are going to be there for you when you're having a bad time. They're probably, whether it's, economy driven, they are too, and you're stronger together than apart. But this whole, my competitor, they might kill their secrets. There are no secrets in what we do. We suck water. We suck water off of the ground with a wand. I mean, boom, I just spoiled it, right? But this whole thing about, well, I use a certain chemical. You buy it from the same place they do. So, I mean, it's just, this thing is learning from people. What's your digital marketing plan? Oh, I use Stellar. Really? Oh, they kill it for me. Boom. They use it 6 months later. Thank you for introducing me to them. It revolutionized my business. What can I do for you now because you helped me? And that's just where growth happens in my world. And that's why John and I believe in air so much, because we're creating that space, and you're, people like you guys are contributing to that and offering education. Even though you have a service, you're educating first, and people are interested and they come get it. So
yeah, I like your point. I like your point about this, the whole secrets thing, because that is something that we run into. I mean, we've run into forever. It's like, it's all this secret stuff. And I'm like, guys, there's no secrets in this industry at all. There's no secrets on the marketing angle of it. There's no secrets on the delivery angle of it. I had one guy who was using a lead gen company. This is probably 7 years ago now. He was spending, when a storm season would come in through his area, because he's pretty seasonal where he was at. Precipitation moves in. He was spending like $40,000 per week buying phone calls, guys. Okay. Now he was doing pretty well in those seasons, no doubt about it, but he was really spending the dough. And I would tell him, like, that all they're doing is buying pay-per-click ads, right? And selling them to you. And he goes, well, they're doing more than that. I go, no, they're not. I was like, they're selling you pay-per-click ads. They have a great pay-per-click guy, and they're selling you these calls. And those calls, I think, were back then, shit, John, what were calls back in 2014, 2015? $200 or $400 or something like that.
Yeah. In the $300 range. But then you get a storm event like that, and that's when the gouging starts to happen. So who knows?
And I would tell him, I'm like, you go use a guy like John, John is going to save you a fortune, even if you're grabbing all the calls that you can. I mean, God, John, what would the discount to them be? 300%. Maybe they spend $10,000 really eating up everything instead of 40,000 buying the leads. It was just crazy to me. And they thought I was like missing some secret thing. I'm like, nope, no secrets, just pay-per-click.
Some people just love to pay retail, and they'll pay all day long, and I don't get it.
But yet they'll ask for a discount on anything else. So.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I have a question for you. Let's shift for just a minute, because this topic came up this last week or two, and John's mentioned. So we had our summit last year, and we've been asked a ton about, are you going to do another one? Well, that's a big old hairy question, because it's, where it's still a challenge with people's mindsets about what's open and not. But
be easier now than when you did it last year, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. But my question is, I was talking to some people that are vendors in our space. We would be vendors at a place. I hear a lot of people saying, I'm pretty much going to start really getting picky about the trade shows that I do, and if I do them at all, because the ROI from this one person, he says, I pay, 8-10 grand to go to this event between the booth, the travel, meals, blah, blah. I might get 15 leads and 5 of them turn into customers. Even, I understand there's a longer term exposure thing there, but right now he's like, the ROI per acquisition is so much better on digital and the way I market online than it is there. But I know trade shows are also, if you don't go, people are just like, well, where's Stellar? Where's Restoration Advisors?
Yeah.
Are they dead in the water? Did COVID eat them or whatever? So have you guys changed your strategy for that this year?
No, I mean, I think you hit it on the head already just by what you said, Clark. I mean, the cool thing about digital marketing of any sort is it's fast and it's direct, so it shows ROI pretty rapidly. The slowest ROI is probably going to come from something like we do, which is SEO, right? That's going to be a slower, longer build ROI, as opposed to pay-per-click can show a pretty fast ROI. Social media marketing can show a pretty fast ROI, but even that one trails because of the PR aspect, the long lasting memory of it, right? So a trade show is similar to that. I mean, do we kill it ROI from us doing trade shows? I mean, we get some customers out of it, but it's more of a recognition thing. We want to see the people. We know these guys. We don't get many opportunities throughout the year to see them. So we want to see them. We all want to see how much weight we gained over 2020.
No, not really.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Sorry, one quick thing. I actually got a phone call this week from a guy who had my business card in his billfold wallet, whatever you guys call them.
From back when, yeah.
From way back when. I'm talking probably 4 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little long, but hey, I'll take it. I'll take that call because it ended up being really, really good. And he remembers us from that, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one we do twice a year is the experience. And, the attendance, depending on the location, goes up and down. You guys have been there.
Yeah.
Vegas is always pretty busy. Atlanta is okay. I don't know I think we're doing it in Charlotte this year, and it'll probably be pretty weak, but I'll go.
I don't think it's going to be weak.
I think it won't either. Yeah, I'm with Clark.
You think it's going to be busy, huh?
I think it's the first event and people are ready to jump out and bounce and do something.
Well, I'd be happy to see that if that's the case.
I've got a booth there. I'm doing a booth for Air and RA, Restoration Advisors, both. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it's going to be a good turnout because I think a lot of people are just like, I've been getting asked, when are we going to do another summit? When are we going to have another? We want to get out of the house. We want to get out of our market. So it's good. Yeah.
I do wonder, are they going to require us to wear masks standing up all day?
That's a good question.
I don't know. You just
had
to bring it down, didn't you?
We'll suck it up. We'll suck it up because it's always a good time. And I go just because I love seeing everybody and I like to see what's going on.
Yeah, you get to see these guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll even watch the drying. I'm not going to go into homes and dry, but I want to see that. I want to see what they're doing, and that's just part of the overall being a specialist in what you do. It's like, I want to have some reality on what these guys are dealing with. So anyway,
are you going to be there this year too, John?
I don't know. I don't think so. When we first started or shortly after we started, we did a trade show and I came away thinking, well, that was the biggest waste of time and energy I've ever seen. That tends to be my personality. Like I love, I very rarely get to see clients either. I mean, there's many clients I've never, met face to face. But we tend to have clients stick around quite a while. And so it is a good, I've been walking in those events where I'll hear someone's voice, down the hallway or something. And it's like, I know that person from talking to him on the phone 1,000 times. So that aspect is fun. Standing behind a table, that's not quite my jam. You guys could build a containment around your booth and just get those like medical gloves that stick out so you can interact with people.
Hand out cards that way.
Yeah.
No we'll be in the Stellar incubator. Come on by.
Yes. Yeah. What's interesting, guys, is and we saw this at our Charleston event. maybe 4 or 5, John. A handful of our vendors did it max headroom style. They just had a big widescreen at the desk, and they were there virtually because they couldn't travel. And
Oh wow,
it's pretty smart, actually.
It was smart, and I kind of shit on the deal. Give me a point. Shit on the deal. 2 points right away. I was like, that's not going to be interactive. But people are used to that. They sat down at the desk and said, hey, give me a demo. One of them was a software, so it was easily done, and it worked. And people, that vendor got business from that. So I just wonder moving forward as we start seeing more self-checkout lanes, more banks without people there, if trade shows are going to become, do we even go? Will we have virtual trades? I don't know where it's all.
I hope not.
I hope not too. I'm with Shana on that.
I want to hug somebody. I want to shake their hand. Like I miss that quite a bit.
Are you a hugger?
She is a hugger. Yeah,
I'm a hugger from way back.
She's a hugger. A lot of this stuff is cyclical. Like if you even go politically over the last year, everybody's like, oh, it's the politics are so, in your face. I'm like, politics were in everybody's face kind of like this in the 60s too. I think a lot of this is really just cyclical, and we're just living in it right now. So I'm hoping that this whole touchless thing is a bit of a trend, and everybody, like, I'm sick of it. Not that I don't respect the situation at all or anything like that. I'm sick of it. I like going out and shaking somebody's hand and talking to somebody face to face. And I like going to a trade show and seeing all my clients there, or, seeing other vendors and guys that you've only heard of. And now you're meeting the owners of the company. One point on that, that John was bringing up that is sort of interesting about the trade shows, and Clark, you touched on this, is, one of the things I noticed at the trade shows is it shows a little bit of staying power in the industry, because, you see the same guys there, right? You'll see, like, we've been there for 10 years. You'll see the guys at Don John, you see them with their whole big booth. There's certain other marketing companies that I'll see there, like 33 miles there every single year, and so you'll see the staying power. And I actually respect that, because, these trade shows are hilarious, because every year there's some new company coming in there that I think they think it's easy money in here, and they think it's some sort of get rich quick thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, here's the new get rich quicker in here, and you don't see them next year, because you know why? They didn't get the short term ROI, and that's to your point, Clark. Of it's a longer term game. It's more of a long term PR recognition game.
Well, I want to compare that to two things. So it's much like BNI. If anybody's been to BNI meetings, which people go to these low referrals, they'll go for 3 or 4 visits, if you will, and stop going. It didn't work out for me. But you're still courting, you're still building relationships, and they all tell you might not see results for 2 years from BNI. Breaking into our tight-knit industry of restoration, everybody's kind of like an outsider until you're an insider. So I think everybody goes through that. But yeah, I don't want to see it. That's what I was going to say. You're talking about the cyclical thing. So was it not 2 years ago that we were talking about global warming, and now we've had the coldest winter in history? So I think everybody just needs to relax on these reactionary. One episode or one small cycle doesn't mean that's the phase we're in. I remind people when we talk about climate control, this whole planet used to be a block of ice. We used to be an ice planet, and then there was probably a time when we were a scorching hot earth planet. We're only here for 80, 90 years, unless you're heavy set like me, and I might be 66 years.
If you listen to all of our points, Shana, I think the underlying theme here, and everything we're saying, no matter where we veer off to, is persistence and staying power and staying the course, and don't get flighty, and don't follow the trends, and don't jump don't jump the horse that you're on for the hobby horse that looks fun for a while. It seems to be the trend.
The shiny object syndrome that our industry tends
shiny
to have
object.
Is,
that's real. Yeah.
I'm stealing that from you, Jonathan. I like that. The shiny object syndrome.
I'm writing it down along with all the cuss words. But yeah, that's honestly, in hearing all of you guys talk, that's really my takeaway too. And I think that's who I am as an individual. I'm pretty darn persistent, and I think we all are individually as well. So I know we've been on here for a bit. I know you guys are super busy and you have to get back to work. But so for me, that's kind of like my final takeaway too, is just, do what works. Do this, put the successful actions in. Don't, look towards the shiny objects, as John said, and then just stay the course. And so, I don't know. That's really kind of, I think, the most value we can really add to anyone who is listening or watching is, just be persistent and stay with it. And if you need help in any of our areas of expertise, give us a call. Obviously, we know what we're talking about. We've been doing this for a long time, each one of us. And so we're here to help.
Yeah. Speaking of areas of expertise, John, you need to turn me on to your barber, brother.
It's my wife. You can't. She's not accepting new clientele.
That's a real bummer. I mean, look at this mess mop I've got going on here.
I kind of like both of them. I think all three of you have great hair today. Just saying.
Oh, I included. Okay, I got it.
Well, thanks for putting this together, Shana. As always, and listen. I'm glad you pulled us together because you said I miss having these, and I think now that we've had it, we were glad we did it, and we all need to embrace that and take those risks. Yeah, we're busy, but we're never too busy to stop and take a breather and learn something.
Like you said earlier about just sticking together, even with AIR and having people who are there to support each other. I mean, that goes along with us too, honestly, because sometimes we need that shoulder to cry on, or we need that push or that whatever, and so that's why I appreciate you guys all coming on today.
Well, these young guys don't know this either. I mean, it's funny because we're all relatively young people, I think, but we're kind of getting to be the old farts in this industry. So, I don't know how many years and people that I've had to go through to find guys like you. Yeah. I mean, a lot of 100%. People, a lot of money wasted, 100%. Lots of burned bridges, lots of frustration. Yep. So that's where, these young guys can really benefit from just a good referral being like, look, you can go mess around for 5 years to learn that's the guy you use, Dan,
to your point, and I know we got to go, but I often say, I wish I'd have known John when I was 24 or Dan when I was 25, but I don't know that I was still mature enough to have cultivated a relationship to be what it is. True. So where we are is where we are, and this is what it is. But
it's a good point.
I tell young people, just find good people and don't change who you are, but just become more like them or see what they're about. But I probably would have not been on your radar at 25. I was kind of still an asshole.
All right, so we'll probably alter this. When you guys are 35 years and older, call us.
Ouch.
Call us in maybe 2032. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for your time, Shana. I'll see you in Charleston.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be there.
It's about April 19th, I believe, right?
Yeah, 18th, I think.
19th. It's a month from
19th,
today.
Yeah.
1 month from today.
I just go wherever Carrie tells me to go. So,
Good old Carrie. How's she doing?
She's doing great, of course.
Okay. Thank you. John, take care of yourself.
Hey, guys. Great seeing you.
Thank you so much for taking your time out. I really appreciate it.
See ya.
All right.
Bye, guys.